Hey there, this is Ryan Eckert with Peak Endurance Solutions. Thank you for purchasing a mobility and flexibility progression plan through myself in the Training Peaks Training Plan Library. This is just a brief video going over some of the specific details of this mobility and flexibility progression, as well as some of the features that are built into this plan. So first off, you'll notice that in this video, I am going over a triathlon-specific mobility and flexibility progression. Just know that I only offer a couple different types of mobility and flexibility progression plans. At the moment of this video recording, I just have triathlon and running specific mobility and flexibility progressions. I may continue to add some more that are sport specific to things such as cycling, swimming, etc. in the future. But just know this video is going to be just fine regardless of which plan you purchased. I'm not going into any of the super specific details of each of the different flexibility or mobility progression plans. I'm simply just going over what each plan has in terms of its features, and across all of the mobility and flexibility progression plans, they are the same in terms of all the features. So just to get started, you'll notice that this is a 4-week progression. There are 4-week progressions, there are potentially 8-week progressions, and longer, just depending on which plan you've purchased. But again, the same basics apply to all of these plans. You'll notice in week 1 that it starts with day 1 and day 2, there are note cards. So on day 1, I have an overview and definitions note card. This is where you want to start after purchasing this plan. So when you go into this note card, you'll notice that there is a link to a video. This isn't the link. I'm actually going to upload a slightly different link because I am remaking this video. So you'll see a slightly different link here, and when you click on that link, it'll take you to the video that you're watching right now. After you review the video, then you want to go down to the bottom of this note card, and you'll notice that there's an attachment. The attachment is a PDF document, so if you click on that, it'll download. Depending on if you're on a phone, on a computer, on a tablet, it should download into a PDF file that you can open up. So once you have that, you can open this up, and then this would be the next thing to review. So this isn't very long. It just goes over some of the key definitions and some of the terminology that I use in this plan, just so there's a common understanding amongst everyone who is following one of these mobility and flexibility progressions. So first off, the very first section, I just start with an overview and some definitions. So I define flexibility and mobility. I point out that these are my definitions. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to be the exact same definition that everyone uses to differentiate between flexibility and mobility, but these are fairly decent ways of describing flexibility and mobility. And it's helpful to understand some of the subtle differences between flexibility and mobility as you go throughout this plan. And then I go into a little bit of the background background related to flexibility, mobility, how it applies to sport, some of the different ways in which we work on flexibility and mobility, and all three of these forms of methods of improving flexibility and mobility are utilized in these progressions. And then I go over some of the unique needs of, in this case, triathletes. But again, depending on which sport-specific plan you got, this could be triathletes, runners, cyclists, swimmers, etc. And then at the very end, this part is actually is quite important potentially. So one thing that I highlight here in this section is the importance of measuring your flexibility or mobility, so that you can repeat that measurement or assessment over time and see if you are making progress or not making progress, or if you have adequate levels of mobility for your specific sports to begin with. This app I came across fairly recently, and it is called the GOWOD app. It's a free app to download, so I highlight that this is a free app. If you go to the App Store, or if you're on an Android, the Google Play Store, you should be able to download an app that is called GOWOD. So this is their website, but you'll be able to download the app if you go to this website. You can download the app onto your device. And this app is actually really cool. So this app, there's a paid version of it in which you can get access to like personalized mobility plans and whatnot. It is, I forget what the exact price of it is, but it's a certain monthly amount. So in the future, maybe this is going to prevent you from using one of these plans made by myself in the future if you end up liking what's on this app so much. But if you end up liking what's on this app, you could always obviously pay for it and get access to that. But for the purposes of this specific mobility progression that you're following, the reason I point out this app is because they have a mobility assessment that you can do for free. So I'm not sure if they're going to show it on here, but when you download the app, you'll log in and then you have the option of doing a mobility assessment. Let's see if I can show it here. Yeah, so there's a mobility test that you can do, and it's pretty cool. I'll go back so you can see a little bit more about it. So it gives you a mobility score at the end of it. It has you run through 10 different mobility exercises, and it assesses you on a variety of different joints and what your mobility score is for each of those individual joints, and then your average global score and how that relates to your specific sport that you're participating in. This is really cool because it is very easy to do. You just need access to, I think, like a wall and a way of measuring a couple things. Just a smartphone and a wall, I think, essentially is all you need access to. You can do it for free. It takes about 10 minutes, and then you'll have a score and you'll have a place, a starting place. So if you encountered this plan and wanted to improve your mobility and flexibility, this gives you a great way of assessing it remotely rather than having to go and assess it with a coach or another practitioner in person. It's really simple and easy to do. You'll get a mobility score. It'll show you some of the areas that you may need to focus on a little bit more specifically. And you can kind of take some of that knowledge with you as you progress throughout this flexibility and mobility progression. So this is great, and you can repeat the test over and over again. You don't have to pay for the app in order to repeat this test. So this can be a great way of starting off by assessing where you're at and then doing it at the end of the plan as well to see if you've made any progress. So that's everything you want to start with. And then on day 2, I go over some of the basics of foam rolling because I do incorporate some foam rolling into this plan. So if you're seasoned when it comes to foam rolling, then you don't necessarily need to go through this note card. But in here I have a link to a blog post that I've written on the science of foam rolling and some of the ways that you can utilize it to improve mobility and flexibility. And then I have a video here that goes over some of the basics of foam rolling if you've never foam rolled before. So if that's you, this would be a good video to watch as well before you actually start implementing some of the sessions in this plan. And then after day 2, you'll notice that there is the 4-week progression. So essentially the only thing that's different between week 1 and the rest of the weeks is there's 3 sessions in week 1 and then 4 sessions each week for the remaining 3 weeks. And it does progress a little bit each week. So not every single thing is the exact same. And then at the end of the 4 weeks, I have this note card that describes the approach to mobility and flexibility maintenance. So essentially you could use this as kind of like a crash course in trying to improve your mobility and flexibility with a little bit more intensive progression for 4 weeks. And then if you feel like you're satisfied with where your mobility and flexibility has ended up, you can maintain it by just doing some of these exercises once or twice a week. You can kind of choose where and when you want to do this, or where you want to incorporate the mobility flexibility routine. But if you feel like you need more, you can obviously continue with this. You could explore other options obviously as well if you feel like you need something that's more specific to certain body parts or certain joints. But essentially I made this so that it is a generalized progression that is specific enough to the sport that you've purchased it for, so that you're working on some of those key areas of mobility and flexibility that are essential for the specific sport that you participate in. So hopefully this video was useful. If you ever have any questions, you can always go to my website, and at the bottom of the home page on my website, there's a contact button. It is peakenduranceSolutions.com, or you can always reach out to me via my email, which is peakenduranceSolutions@outlook.com.